1. The village that never changed. The village of Greyhaven did not appear on most maps, not because it was hidden, but because no one ever bothered to update it. If you looked closely at old county records, you would find it listed exactly the same way it had been in 1724. Same road names, same number of houses, same church at the centre, same stone well that no longer served any real purpose except tradition. Greyhaven was quiet in a way that felt intentional. Not peaceful, not calm. Intentional. People who passed through often said the same thing later, usually with a laugh they didn't fully believe. It felt like the village was holding its breath. The residents woke up early. They worked simple jobs. They smiled politely. They slept perfectly. No nightmares, no insomnia, no sleepwalking, no screaming children at night. Doctors found it fascinating. Psychologists found it impossible. And historians eventually stopped asking questions, because Greyhaven didn't like questions. 2. The stranger who couldn't sleep. Ethan Cole arrived on a Tuesday. That alone was unusual. Nobody arrived on Tuesdays. He had taken a temporary job cataloguing forgotten parish records, the kind of work nobody wanted and nobody checked twice. It paid poorly and asked even less. Ethan liked that. What he didn't like was the sleep, or rather, the lack of it. The first night in Greyhaven, he lay in the small rented room above Mrs. Alder's bakery, staring at the ceiling while the entire village fell silent. Not quiet, silent. No dogs barking, no wind through trees, no distant traffic, just nothing. At exactly 10:13 p.m, every light in the village went out. Ethan checked his phone. Still had signal, still had time, but something about the silence pressed against his chest, like the world itself had gone to sleep. 3. The first rule of Greyhaven. The next morning Mrs. Alder served him breakfast without asking how he slept. Instead she smiled and said, "You'll get used to it." Used to what? The quiet, the early lights out. When Ethan asked what time people usually went to bed, she blinked, just once too slowly. "The right time," she said. That afternoon, Ethan noticed something stranger. No clocks, not in the bakery, not in the church, not even in the town hall. Everyone seemed to know the time, without ever checking it. At exactly 10:13 p.m, again the lights died, and again. Ethan did not sleep. 4. The dreams. No one remembered. By the third day, Ethan realised something was deeply wrong. Every morning, villagers gathered near the well and spoke softly about their rest. Not dreams, rest. Good rest last night. Yes, very good rest. When Ethan asked if anyone dreamed, the conversation stopped. One man laughed nervously. A woman crossed herself. Mrs. Alder whispered, "Dreams are unnecessary." That night, Ethan stayed awake on purpose. At 10:13 p.m, when the silence fell, he kept his eyes open. And that's when he heard it. A sound beneath the silence. Breathing. Not one breath. Hundreds. Perfectly synchronized. 5. The thing beneath the village. Ethan followed the sound. Down the empty street. Past the church. To the old stone well. The cover was warm. Not from the sun. From below. As he leaned closer, the breathing grew louder, slower, deeper, like the village itself was sleeping, and then a whisper rose from the dark. Not yet. Ethan stepped back. The lights flicked on. It was morning, and every villager stood around him, smiling. Mrs. Alder touched his arm gently. "You really must learn to sleep," she said, before the village noticed. Ethan didn't remember walking back to his room. That was the first thing that bothered him. One moment, he was standing at the stone well, surrounded by smiling faces. Mrs. Alder's hand resting lightly on his arm like a mother calming a child. The next moment, morning light was leaking through the thin curtains of his rented room. His boots were neatly placed by the door. His coat hung on the wooden peg. His satchel lay closed on the table. Everything suggested a normal night, except Ethan had not slept, not even for a second. He knew that with a certainty deeper than thought, because his body felt wrong, not tired, not rested, but suspended, like something had paused him halfway between waking and dreaming. 1. The morning that felt rehearsed. The village woke together. Ethan noticed it as he stepped outside. Doors opened in near unison. Shutters lifted at the same pace. Footsteps appeared on the streets as if cued by some silent signal. No one rushed, no one lingered. It wasn't robotic, it was worse. It was practiced. Mrs. Alder waved to him from the bakery window, her smile already prepared. "Good rest?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. Words mattered here. He could feel it. "I didn't sleep much." For the first time since his arrival, her smile faltered. Not gone, just delayed. "Oh," she said gently. "That happens sometimes, when you're new." She handed him bread. Warm, soft, comforting, and leaned closer. "But you will," she added quietly. "Everyone does." 2. No one leaves. Greyhaven, Ethan decided to leave that afternoon. Not dramatically, not running, just go. He packed his things slowly, deliberately, as if calmness itself might protect him. At the edge of the village, the road stretched outward, narrow, pale, inviting. He walked. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The road curved, and somehow he was back at the bakery. Mrs. Alder stood outside, wiping her hands on her apron. "You'll miss supper," she said kindly. Ethan's mouth went dry. "I just walked in a straight line," he said. She nodded. "Of course you did." As if that explained everything. 3. The records that didn't age. The parish records were kept in a small stone building behind the church. Dusty. Quiet. Safe. Or so Ethan thought. The pages were old, centuries old, but the handwriting didn't change. Same curves, same pressure, same hand. Generation after generation recorded births and deaths in the same careful script. Except death stopped appearing. The last recorded death was dated 1724. After that, nothing. Births continued, marriages continued, but no one died. Ethan flipped page after page, his heart beating faster with each turn. People lived and lived and lived. 4. The children who never grew. That evening, Ethan noticed the children. He hadn't before. They played quietly near the well, rolling a wooden hoop, drawing shapes in the dirt, all different ages, yet somehow the same. Their clothes were worn but well kept, their faces calm, too calm. One girl looked up at Ethan and smiled. "How long have you lived here?" he asked her. She tilted her head. "Always." "How old are you?" She thought for a moment. "Enough?" A bell rang, not loud, not sharp, more like a breath. Every child stopped moving. They stood and walked home, together. 5. The second night Ethan didn't wait for 10:13. He sat on his bed, fully dressed, lights on, eyes open. At exactly 10:13 p.m, the light died anyway. The silence returned, thick, heavy, absolute, and beneath it, breathing, slower tonight, deeper, as if something was settling. Ethan pressed his hands over his ears. It didn't help. The sound wasn't travelling through the air. It was inside the ground, inside the walls, inside him. 6. The man who woke once before. Someone knocked. 3 slow taps. Ethan froze. The door creaked open to reveal an old man, older than anyone Ethan had seen in Greyhaven. His back was bent, his eyes were sharp, and he was trembling. "You're awake," the man whispered. Yes. The old man swallowed. So was I. Once. He stepped inside quickly, closing the door behind him. They don't like it when someone stays awake, he said. It reminds it. Reminds what? The man looked at the floor. The sleeper. 7. The truth. Whispered. They spoke in murmurs, as if volume itself was dangerous. The village made a bargain, the old man said, long ago, before memory. With what? With something beneath us. Something that needed rest. Ethan remembered the warmth of the well, the breathing. It sleeps, the man continued, and in return we do not change. No death, Ethan said. No dreams, the man corrected. Dreams wake it. Why are you still awake then? The man smiled sadly. Because once you wake on the wrong night, it never fully takes you again. 8. The price of waking. The old man's hands shook. I am the cost, he said. I age, slowly, painfully, while everyone else remains. Paused. And the children? They were born after the bargain. They will never grow. Ethan felt sick. And me? The old man met his eyes. You're not part of the deal. A deep, slow exhale rolled through the village. The walls creaked. The ground vibrated. It knows you're here now, the old man whispered. 9. The village notices footsteps outside. Dozens. Calm. Unhurried. Mrs. Alder's voice drifted through the door. Ethan, she called softly, you shouldn't be awake. The old man backed toward the window. If you sleep tonight, he said urgently, you'll forget. You'll stay. And if I don't? The old man opened the window. Then it will wake. 10. End of part 2. Cliffhanger. The breathing beneath the village stopped. For the first time since Ethan arrived. There was silence beneath the silence. Mrs. Alder's voice hardened. Oh, she said, it's listening now.